restarted, in fact, the new chapters of Growth Hacking Culture podcast. And this new season, in fact, we are going to start with someone that I know already for close to 15 years. And we are going to talk about a topic that is very dear to my heart. And it's about talking about building bottom-up driven innovation. And the reason why I want to talk about it is that very often we believe that innovation is a one-off exercise that we do for a couple of months when we push a lot of technology, a couple of workshops, and things are going to be self-sustainable. But no, the reality is that the challenge for many organizations is to have an innovation culture, which is basically having a shared set of values, beliefs, behaviors that in fact support this innovation continuously in an organization. So despite that you are done with the initial effort, people continues in fact to experiment, take risk, bring new ideas. They already have all these, how can I call it? Kind of redundant and recurrent behaviors in order to continue challenging the status quo. And there are many organizations that work on that already. Like we can mention about Google, and Google already is quite innovative, and they have this culture. The company, for instance, has a number of programs and initiatives that support innovation, such as the one about the vote, where employees have 20% of the time to devote to work on other projects on their own choosing. The same happens with another company called 3M, where there is the 15% rule, which allows employees to spend 50% of their work time on projects on their own choosing too, even if they are not related to their current job. So there is many examples like that. And what I wanted to have this time is to have the vision, the approach of somebody who has gone through these different type of setups in organizations. So, and I wanted to introduce to you Mykola Takzey. So he has an impressive career in corporate innovation, many locations. For instance, he has been based in Switzerland, which is where I met him for the first time, maybe 15, 16 years ago. He has been working in Ukraine, in Israel, in Belgium, in different corporate innovation positions. And one of the most interesting part of his experience is that he has worked in some organizations that were already struggling with their transformation journey. Mykola is, even though his background is in marketing, he's not a typical marketeer. He blends innovation and change tools so that innovation becomes the thing that organizations always do, and it's not just a one-off. Mykola, I'm so happy to have you with me today, and I wanted to discuss a little bit more about your personal experience. Tell me more about how did you go through these different type of environments, through these different type of companies, and what was the major learning that you have got out of your experience?
Cool. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Indeed, we met so many years ago in a completely different circumstances, and this is amazing and mind-blowing where we are now. You are running this fantastic podcast and YouTube channel. I'm doing corporate innovations, and it's funny that you mentioned that, you know, I'm a marketing guy, but not really, not like standard marketing guy, which is kind of intriguing already, by the way, because I do think that marketing people need to be innovators, but we can talk about that in details, obviously. Now, about my path, my professional path, as you mentioned already, it started in a multinational, and I spent close to 15 years in a multinational company where we met. And usually people, you know, say, "Oh my God, you must have been so bored for 15 years." Sometimes I was, but probably I was lucky enough to change like paths, geographies, jobs, vertically, horizontally, which is great. And I think this is how I actually ended up in the corporate innovations eventually, because I kind of became marketing director for the big market, like top 10 market for the company. And then I felt that the marketing that we're doing is a bit like old schoolish and a bit of artificial, if I may use this word, you know, made up type of thing. And this is where I tried to search for new things for me at least, and I came across design thinking. And I know you had the couple of videos and a couple of people talking about design thinking in particular. And I was really fascinated about this human-centered approach to everything, including products, services, and marketing as well. And I tried to implement this approach in marketing function of the corporate. Failed, obviously. About that as well. But I got spotted, and when the company was looking for someone to open up so-called an innovation center, or that time we called it innovation outpost in Israel, it's a top 10 global innovation ecosystem. Innovation ecosystem means, you know, in terms of number of startups, in terms of investments, in terms of exits, in terms of VCs, venture capitalists, funds, etc. So it's a big ecosystem, Israel. They said, okay, there's a weird guy, a marketing director in Ukraine. He likes all this Scrum, Agile, and things like that. So let's send him there. So this was my formal beginning of the corporate innovation route. After that, I ran my own consultancy in the field of business transformation, including innovations, both corporate innovations and corporate entrepreneurship. And I hope we have time to discuss that, because it's a very important topic for most of the organizations these days, especially the large ones. And after that, it was through consultancy that I was offered, again, as kind of internal startup position as a chief innovation officer in one of the largest agrarian / food companies in Ukraine, with EBITDA of $500 million, 2022. And then we had big plans, which were interrupted by the war. And now I'm back to marketing, let's put it this way, with more focus on, I would say, innovations, but not in a technological sense, but in terms of change management within the company, like, you know, tuning the strategic focus and really trying to get things through in the company, in marketing, but also beyond marketing. So that's a bit of a path.
Mykola, you mentioned it, and you use the word they spotted the weird guy, and that's the flavor you gave me the first time I saw you, because you were a rare mix. Like, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't have guessed that you were a marketeer. I mean, we were in a setup of marketing, I still remember, but you had this ability for analytics to put problems in little small pieces. I don't know. I would have guessed that you were a mathematician or an engineer or something like that. I don't even know if you studied engineering, by the way. So that's the first part. The second part is that, as I have been following up a little bit what you have been doing, your postings in LinkedIn, your social media presence, you have been talking more and more of this aspect of change management. And when we talk about change management, we are talking about the people, because innovation cannot happen without the people, because otherwise you have resistance. And maybe that's why sometimes when we want to do a transformation in an organization, it doesn't really, it fails, because basically people are resistant to any change because they were not on board, that we didn't consider the psychological aspect of change. If it is already so difficult for us to change in an individual manner, when we have, like, I don't know, when we are not that super patient with our children. We were talking about children just before. When we are not patient with our children, it's difficult to change. When we are not listening to our wives, it's a little bit difficult. So especially in terms of big changes, our brain fires up the fear, natural resistance, and this is often disregarded because organizations oversimplify, believing that innovation is the reward that everybody expects, that everybody wants change, everybody wants technology.
No, it's vice versa, Ivan. Nobody wants to change. Maybe like at max 10% of the organization. Like Simon Sinek is saying that you need to have like 15% of the early adopters or trendsetters in the organization, and then you get the ball rolling. But it is very rarely that you have those 15% like this. Change is pain. Change is stress. Change is something that we biologically and physically try to avoid. It is therefore very important to do something with it. And I mean, the numbers are not lying. 80% of the CEOs are saying that innovation and change, because for me those things are a bit equal, to be honest with you, are going to be the growth drivers of the business, right? 80%, 8 out of 10. And it's only 17% of the CEOs who are happy with their innovation agenda. And I think, or at least my experience tells me, is that one of the reasons why this gap exists between the intention and like actual results is the fact that they or we forget about the people. Because without the human-centered approach to innovations, to change management, it's just impossible. It doesn't work. You can change the processes and systems. Yes, that helps to change the behavior as well. But unless you put yourself in the shoes of your people, stakeholder groups, if we want to sound professional and official, stakeholder groups, no way you can implement this sustainable change and sustainable innovation efforts. That's why definitely the step number one, if we want innovation to happen, is having a vision and having the commitment of the top, right, CEO and the board, and maybe the top management team. But definitely the step number two, which cannot be avoided, is understanding the needs of your people. And when I say your people, means consumers, customers, partners, but also employees, right? And it's only when you do understand those things and you can craft your engagement plans, communication plans, change management plans, you can really get the sustainable results. Because, for instance, I was consulting a very successful IT company back like 3-4 years ago. And I mean, making a lot of money, huge plans, transformation agenda, and things like that. But people are disengaged because, and you can feel it because I always start from interviewing different people, like picking like 2-3 people from various, again, stakeholder groups, management, employees, sales, marketing, delivery, etc., etc. And you can sense it because 40 minutes of talking is enough to have a bit of empathy, to break the ice, and then carefully get the real feedback. And when people are afraid to challenge status quo, when they cannot speak up, when there is no culture to constructively challenge each other at the meetings, because it is perceived as an act of aggression, feedback, challenge. It was clear that we cannot talk about transformations or introducing like profound changes in the organization unless we change these basic things. And usually this is being forgotten, and that's why the failure rate of innovations and within the companies, but also overall change management efforts is very high, up to 70%. Yeah, so this is very important, and I really love that you're raising it. But then the question is, what is the culture, right? And how to change it? It's a holy grail of all these business transformations, and I do think that it's about daily habits. It's about what you do every day differently, and then basically, the behaviors, they lead to the change of culture. It's not about printing the posters with your corporate values and hanging them on the walls that will help to change the culture. No.
But this is exactly the point that I wanted to highlight, that still with a couple of companies that I've been either working with or opening the dialogue about innovation, it happens that they believe that innovation, it is the consequence of implementing digitalization. For instance, we are going to digitalize the whole processes, and very often they will not look at the human aspect, this friction that is going to be in order to implement. And already the implementation is going to be a challenge because nobody wants to use the tool that they have paid millions. And so there is still a big chunk of organizations that completely forget the human aspects, but we can already visualize a couple of red flags when we meet them, that they are going to have, there is going to be a potential risk of failure because they are not looking at the psychological aspect of the organization. And as you mentioned, so it is going to be the lack of involvement with the employees. Is going to be this lack of candid talking that you were saying, that if we are not able to say the things as they are because we are too politically correct, we cannot change. Everybody's going to be nice and hugging, and nobody's going to move forward. So there is a couple of aspects that look important, and still very often disregarded. This concept and the title of this session is about, can organizations really make bottom-up driven organization? So now let's play the devil's advocate and think, is there any really good examples of bottom-up? No, let's do the opposite of the top-down organizations, where there is a boss who has this vision, and he succeeds to that the whole organization is engaged. Maybe that will help us to organize our thoughts about if it is just a dream of having bottom-up driven innovation or not. So in this side of top-down.
Listen, I think the short answer, it is a dream. And the explanation for that is the following, at least from my experience and from what I hear from other people talking about innovations. There is never 100% top-down. There is never 100% bottom-up. Seriously, it's a mix. It's a balance. It's an equilibrium. Imagine there is a CEO who does not believe in innovations. Business as usual. We've been doing this forever. It led to our business growth. So what's the point to change, right? And there is a group of people accidentally working in this company that wants to do things differently. What kind of reaction would you expect? Not a good reaction from the CEO. Guys, stop wasting your time. Go and do things like we did it, forever. So 100% bottom up doesn't work. Imagine there is an opposite example, 100% top down. I will give you an example. Do you consider Steve Jobs an innovator, a visionary? What do you think?
Well, there is something about Steve Jobs in terms of the discipline that he had in order to go into one direction.
He was harsh.
Yeah, he was like a boom, boom, yes.
Exactly.
He had an idea and he had to do it. Everything for design or whatever it was the idea.
I would call him an innovator and a visionary because, he changed the world. Let's not go into details, but I think he was. But the question is, would he succeed as Apple, right? As one of the most valuable companies now, these days, without support of engineers, developers, and all these thousands of people in the organization? I don't think so. So means there is no 100% top-down. That's why it's somewhere in between. I can tell you for sure, that if you want to kill your innovation efforts, you need to start from the CEO who either does not believe or is hesitant about innovations. If you have a CEO like this, you will never succeed. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So, of course, there are examples of companies. Some you already mentioned, like 3Ms, right? This famous story about someone inventing the Post-it, right? And Post-it becoming like a wow thing in that everyone uses. Companies are now investing a lot of time and efforts into something that is called corporate entrepreneurship, meaning that the companies are releasing part of resources, time, money, etc., for employees to come up with not ideas. It's not a, you know, the box that you put on reception that says your idea is welcome. No, they're inspiring and giving resources to employees to come up with solutions, right? And those solutions, they go through the funnel, this innovation funnel, from idea down to prototype and test. And not one, but those who are tested successfully, employees become partners in that part business. This is a proper way to do bottom-up innovations, I think. But this changes the whole relationship model between the company and the employee. It is no longer about employer and employee. It's about partners in a small part of business or large part of business. That's why a lot of companies, successful companies, banks in particular, fintech, insurance companies, they're doing spin-offs when their employees or the teams of employees are designing the product that becomes a standalone company. Obviously, the mother company, the parent company, has, you know, part of equity, right? But they can either acquire that startup, corporate startup, or that it can become a standalone company offering services to other players of the industry. And this is how basically the innovations from within become also, you know, firms and companies that can be successful outside the parent business. I think it's very, 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 how do you call it? High potential model that most of modern and advanced companies either pursue already or will be pursuing in the nearest future. Obviously, it requires a lot of change management and a lot of communication and a lot of engagement and sometimes resources to free up this creativity from personnel, from employees, to generate extra revenue streams.
Mykola, so if I understand correctly, there is different models to establish if we want to have this bottom-up approach, or as you say, it's not 100% bottom-up, but just partially bottom-up. So yes, we have the possibility of either one, big bang across the organization. We take a big excuse and we say, let's digitalize, for instance. And it becomes an effort of digitalization only across the whole organization. Then there is the model where you would say, let's create an entity where everything is possible. It's not following the same rules as the rest of the organization.
Yes.
In order to that this approach will become successful, they should be, should the employees should be permanent, or it should be an exchange between the mother company and this lab or mini startup inside of the organization, and exchange. You spend 3 months, you work on a project, you go back so that people can benefit, and it can at least prepare them in terms of the mindset, how to do the things, because innovation is not about having great ideas. Everybody can have great ideas that do not have any value, but they look good. But more about knowing the process, using design thinking, using other processes, or even these regular behaviors in order to generate the ideas that happens every single day. That's something that we can practice, in fact.
Look, both models are possible. And again, it's a strategic choice. For instance, I was working in the company where I offered 2 models for the CEO, saying, look, we can build a lab, an innovation lab, and therefore we will need to sit in a different building. We will not talk to the organization that is doing the classic business model of the firm, okay? In 6 months, we will come back to you with the portfolio of solutions. Model number 2, we sit in the same building, okay? We contaminate organization with our innovation virus. They pay attention to us. They want to be like innovators. Some of them, not everyone, obviously, but that comes with a price. We will be slower, okay? And we will have a lot of barriers on our way because we're sitting within the, the conventional business. He chose the second option because he wanted to contaminate. I deliberately use this word. Maybe it's not that right in English, but it's like a virus. You spread the innovation virus across the organization. Exactly to this reason, he said, look, I will make sure, and that's the best part of a good CEO, I will make sure that you don't have any barriers, at least when it comes to common sense. You don't have barriers. Meanwhile, you make sure that you have the quick wins, you build the portfolio of innovative solutions, short-term, mid-term, long-term, and you engage the rest of the organization via cross-functional teams. Okay? And that wasn't easy because, when you invite people or they get nominated to cross-functional teams, you get the best people from different parts of the business, from different departments, but those usually come with their already kind of set workload, and they perceive you as an innovation project as something on top of their daily job.
Yep.
That's why if you want really to again have this innovation virus spread across the organization, don't forget about your performance management system, please. Don't forget about your KPIs. Don't forget about freeing up time, like you mentioned, Google with 20% time that they can reinvest. And I think they can reinvest it only to Google projects, by the way, not to their own projects. Their own within Google. Yep. That's the way, right? That's a small difference, but very important one. So yeah, both models are possible, right? It really depends on what you're working on. Because, for instance, if you're working on as an innovation group, innovation department, if you're working on a so-called Horizon 3 innovations, which are really disruptive and bring your company to new business models outside of your current business model, probably it's not the best option to sit within the business. It's better to be outside, because otherwise the conventional business will be really like not helping. Whereas if you're working on Horizon 1, which is like, let's say, how can we do things better type of thing, right? Still doing these things, the things that we're doing now, but better, more efficiently, digitalization, I don't know, robotization, AI, etc., but not fundamentally changing the business model. Then I would recommend to sit inside and attract the best people into your innovation lab while keeping the doors open, not hiding behind the closed doors.
Mykola, I wanted to come back to this concept of virality of innovation. This virality of innovation is not about what people are working on. It's not about that they are going to be learning about technology because we are working on an innovation on technology. It's more about this mindset, this set of rules that, or set, the mentality that you have as an innovator. Let me give you an example that is more related to myself. Like, for instance, when I wanted to become an entrepreneur, one of the first things that I did is to hang around entrepreneurs in technology so that I can, and it wasn't about learning the technology itself. It was about understanding their mindset. How do they think? What in terms of the risk aversity, in terms of investing in a project, in terms of managing their time, balancing their time. So it's the set of behaviors that make you an innovator. It's not the what people are working on, it's the how they are working that is viral. It impregnates in you, and then you change your old ways of being by miming, if you want, this environment. What is your opinion on that, Mykola?
Look, I will give you 3 or maybe 4 examples of very simple tools that I believe are extremely efficient. First of all, is it's the most popular question among innovators. What if? So if you manage, what if is the question, right? If you manage within your small team or large team of innovators to cultivate this risk-free environment when where people can ask the question, what if?
Mm.
That's a huge step forward. Second is also very simple. When working on a project, when trying to solve a complex issue, when brainstorming within the team, try not to say yes, but when you're talking about the idea or anything. Ask your team to say yes and.
Mm.
It's so simple, almost like, oh, really? But it helps so much. And third, which is very much connected to what you said about mingling with people, with communities, tech, for example, anything. There is a thing that I personally love called knowledge brokering. For instance, we have an issue or we have a problem of, um, let's say, feedback culture in the organization, right? People do not perceive feedback as something that helps them to grow.
Mm.
We don't know how to deal with it. So what we do, we get 3 people, 5 people from absolutely different companies. Let's say we're doing FMCG. I'm getting a person from bank. I'm getting the person from, I don't know, IT. I'm getting the person from somewhere else. And I'm asking them the question, have you ever encountered an issue like this? And they say, yes. So I'm doing a bit of a pre-screening. And then they invite those people to tell their story, how they addressed similar issue. Now, it's not a copy-paste because
Mm.
we're so much different. We're from different industries, different geographies, different environments, but it makes you think and it makes you apply the experience from absolutely different context to your own context. And this is where we breed innovative ideas. So at least those 3 things, if companies do, if leaders do, again, what if, yes, and instead of yes, but, and cross, uh, whatever, brokering, knowledge brokering is the name. If you do this, trust me, your teams are gonna come with much better and much more feasible ideas as well. Because it's, innovation is about 3 things. It's about desirability, viability, and feasibility. Now, cool idea, if it doesn't bring the business value and you can make it, what for? If it's a
Mm.
cool idea that brings potentially business value, but you cannot make it, stupid. If you cannot make it, it potentially brings money to the company or whatever KPIs you put, but nobody needs it.
And the point that you're mentioning, Mykola, is super important because it means also that these seniors of an organization have to be trained on these 3 dimensions that you are to understand these 3 dimensions, because
Yeah.
otherwise they go their old ways, and it means just because I like it, let's do a project on AI, let's do a
Yeah.
project with robots.
Everyone is doing AI. Let's do it as well.
Exactly. So, but that comes because the decision makers, the one approving either the experiments or the minimum viable products, are the ones who don't have like a frame of reference to take the decisions correctly. Because
Right.
it's about like betting, like investing or something like that, and they need to be very mindful about where they're putting an investment that is going to last maybe a long time. Mykola, I'm pretty sure that this experience that you had as an entrepreneur um, was quite important in order to determine and acquire a lot of knowledge about how innovation works like you have multiplied the number of connections with new organizations, and you have seen the best and the worst, right? So I want to do an exercise with you. You have a magic wand,
Yeah.
and one of these organizations, like let's say one of the top 500 organizations in the New York Stock Exchange, is asking you
Right.
to be their CEO, and you have to deal with an organization that is used to make money, and suddenly they want to transform. What could be the first initial things that you would be working on in your
That's such a good
first 3 months?
Ivan. Okay, as I understand, I have to take the position of the CEO, right? Was
You
never
don't have
my
the choice,
aspiration,
Mykola.
but all right, all right, all
Netherlands
right.
is expensive, Mykola. You have to take it.
Yeah. Look, I'm very confident with the first step. The first step has to be the answer to the question, why are we transforming? What do we want to get out of it? Seriously. And if we need to spend 3 months cracking this question, then we need to spend 3 months. Because transformation without the purpose and very clear answer is a no-go. Why? Because first, you don't know why you're doing this fantastic multi-million project, but even more importantly, you cannot explain it to your people.
Mm.
And if you cannot explain it to your people, they don't see value of it for them. And if they don't see value of it for them, they never gonna be your allies unless you force them and you make it their job description, which is not sustainable when it's not intrinsic. Okay. So this is absolutely critical first step. Step number two, I have to, New York, you said, okay? I need to sit on my top floor, look at the horizon and say, okay, for the next 3 months, maybe not the only thing, but 80% of my time, working time, I will be talking about this transformation. I will not compromise on it. I will never doubt about it. I will be like a robot, repeating and reinforcing importance and talking to my people in the elevator, I don't know, sorry, in the bathroom, during the lunch, in the canteen, during the meetings, town halls, everywhere. I will be the sponsor and ambassador of this transformation. No exceptions. Number three, what I would do is setting up the governance model, okay? Because all this innovation things, they sound so cool and nice, shiny and perfect if you think about SpaceX and stuff like that. But behind the surface, there is a very robust and thought through governance model with all the processes, approvals, who does what, prices, etc., etc. And I would need to do that, probably not alone, but with my allies within the company. And by the way, I mentioned the word ally. I strongly recommend your audience to Google the HBR. I think it's a free access, an HBR article about transformation of GE, General Electric.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic article. But one of the most fascinating things that was there is that the CEO was so committed to the transformation that he said to his old friends who he worked with for years and decades, guys, you're either in or out. And it was super painful, but he understood that if key people don't share the same vision and he keeps them in the company, the transformation is going to fail. I know it sounds like very aggressive and maybe a bit too much, but that's the way it is. And it was one of his key learnings. As a next step, and it's already over 3 months, I think, I will definitely set up a proper team. And when I mean a proper team, it's like a couple of things. Cross-functional, definitely, because I do believe, and I'm a big fan of this radical collaboration, meaning when people collaborate across horizontally, vertically with clients, with customers, etc., etc. And definitely the team of the best talents, meaning future leaders or current leaders, that's gonna in a talent pool of top management for the company. I would need to onboard them as soon as possible into the urge of this transformational change because A, they are committed, B, they are motivated, C, they're engaged, D, very important, they will be the future leaders of the company, making sure this change transformation lasts and, shines and thrives. And then my favorite mistake comes. If I wanted to do it properly, I would balance the portfolio of my transformational changes between quick wins, maybe small things, but things I can do tomorrow that bring visible results to the company. I don't know, you said digitalization, maybe improvement in some processes, maybe launching an innovative product. I don't know, depends, right? So I would balance the quick wins with really big ticket items, like, vast, wide scale things. Why? Because if you have only big ones, right? Transformational changes, it's going to come 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now. You lose it. You lose the momentum, right? So small steps that lead you to the big thing. So these are the things I would do, probably go beyond 3 months, but the agenda would look something like this.
Mykola, let me highlight my favorites. The
Go
one
ahead.
that you started at the beginning. The reason why we're doing the transformation. And the funny thing is that it's always overlooked because a lot of organizations come there with the same BS because of competition, because they're catching up. There is this atmosphere or this description of living a chaos with fear. So you are adding to the change that you want to implement a dimension of fear where employees that are not on board. In fact, for me, this point is critical because that will determine your sense of purpose for the next 12 months or so. Why are you doing the things, but in an inspirational way, in a positive way? Why are you? Because people want to do great things, but not just because we're going to do things quicker or we are going to be number one in the world. It's because we are helping our communities. We are doing something that is above just the purpose of selling what we sell, chocolates or drinks or whatever it is. So the sense of purpose will be determined, and that will create this intrinsic motivation that makes innovation sustainable. The second one that is also one of my favorites is the idea of collaboration. Because contrary to everything that we were told in our generation about competition is good, no. When you are constantly watching your back because you know that your friend who is your colleague today is going to be jumping on whatever mistake you are going to be doing next, then you don't feel safe. This concept of not feeling safe at home, at work, sorry, at home is also the same, is going to prevent you to dare to try new things. Is going to limit you because you are going to be fearful of being judged all the time. That if you do a mistake, you are going to fail and people are going to point fingers to you. And it's not going to be productive for any innovation. The more scared you are, you don't produce innovation. And that is produced when you are working in an environment that is where there is extreme competition and there is no real collaboration. It means real collaboration is not giving a hand to someone, helping him on doing something. No, it is real collaboration is that we are on it together, trying to reach both of us a real objective. And we own the shit. We own this thing. And that's
I can give you an example if you want, Ivan, of this radical collaboration, which I think is a good example, and it's very much connected to the purpose. When you're driven by financial metrics, I don't think there is room for collaborating with your competition. It's impossible. It's you have to beat the competition, as simple as that. Market share, volume, value, blah, blah, blah. However, if you're driven as a company, as a leader, by the purpose, there is a lot of room for collaboration. For instance, Ukraine is at war these days, and Ukraine became a hub, a technological hub for military tech, in particular drones. I hope you don't follow these things. I follow because I am Ukrainian. Drones are playing a pivotal role at the battlefield. absolutely pivotal. And if 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, I would be a jury at the startup event where I would see 3 drone companies, mostly for agriculture, pitching for financial support, not support, raising, rounds. And they would be competitors because the jury would give the financing to one of them, not to all of them. Now, being driven by the purpose of freeing our country from the invaders, they are uniting and they're doing those drones together. They are exchanging their IPs. They are opening up their, know-hows for their competitors because the sense of purpose in this particular case is way stronger than the economic or financial objectives, targets that they have. And this is an extreme example, obviously, because we're talking about, surviving here, right? But if you kind of extrapolate this logic to things like sustainability development goals, communities, welfare, and things like that, there is room for collaboration, trust me. And this is
It's
very important.
almost like
This is where innovations get, fueled.
Indeed. Mykola, I don't know if you have noticed, we haven't talked about product or all. We haven't even discussed really marketing. We have talked about the innovation from the side of the enablers, which is the humans, maybe the processes a little bit. And that's why I want to go back to my initial. Yes, exactly. I wanted to go back to my initial description of you. You are not the typical marketeer. You are somebody who there is inside the box, there is outside the box, and there is another universe called the Mykolas universe. I'm
in a different box.
You destroyed the box.
It's a long topic, Ivan. We can talk forever, trust me. So many interesting things, and they are so relevant to today, seriously, because that's why I said, look, come on, I'm not a different type. Everyone has to have this innovation aspect in their daily work and life as well. Be it an HR person, be it a marketing person, a generalist, or a financial guy. It is just impossible to sit there enjoying the way it was done forever. And it's boring, by the way, as well.
And there is a psychological reason also, because we all aspire to be a better version of ourselves. No matters what we do, even if it is cleaning our houses or whatever, to do it always a little bit better is what makes us, is fulfilling the highest need that we have, self-actualization, and that's human psychology.
You see, for some it's cleaning the house, for some it's buying the robot vacuum cleaner, which is the technological innovation, and spending your freed time from cleaning the house to something else.
Indeed. Mykola, I wanted to ask you, so if there is people who are interested about knowing a little bit more about yourself or having some tips from your side, how can they reach you out?
Oh yeah, I would be the happiest person in the world connecting to people who are curious about, change management, innovations, and things like that. The easiest way is just to connect with me on LinkedIn and DM me there. Just drop me a message and we'll find a way. I'm sure about that.
Great. So I'm going to put the link to your LinkedIn profile. Mykola, it was lovely to see you. And again, man, you haven't changed. I haven't seen you for 12, 15 years, and you are still the same. Mykola, it was really lovely.
Thank you so much, Ivan, for inviting. It was a great pleasure.
Thanks.